Ready. Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm Dan Bates, President and CEO of Greater Hamilton Chamber of Commerce. It's great to see a lot of familiar faces and a few new ones. We are on Zoom today. People that are joining us on Zoom can ask questions of the speaker. People that are on Facebook Live, if you type in your questions, then Tiffany will ask them to the speaker so you can get them answered. So thank you for joining us today. We're very excited to have Ryan Nicely with us. And I think I'll go ahead and introduce him, and then we'll do self-introductions and we can go right into his presentation. So Ryan is the owner of Simpletech, LLC, has over 25 years of experience as an IT professional. His broad experience includes IT, operations, distribution, logistics, point of sale, customer service, web design, social marketing, and so much more. He has hyper-focused lately on applying his technology and problem-solving skills to help restaurant owners manage their businesses more efficiently, saving them time and money while also helping them increase traffic and grow sales. Ryan Nicely is a husband of 17 years and father to a son and a daughter, and we are glad to have him with us today, really anticipating his presentation. So with that, you know who I am, we know who our presenter is going to be. Now let's find out who some of you are.
All right, so I'll start off. I'm Laura Merrill with the Greater Hamilton Chamber. Then we'll just go around the screen and everybody introduce yourselves. Nancy, you're next.
Nancy O'Neill with the Greater Hamilton Chamber.
Corendon.
Corendon Burton.
He's an intern with the Chamber. Tammy.
Tammy Walton, the Greater Hamilton Chamber.
Julie. Oh, you're muted. You're muted. We'll give you a second there. Here, we'll ask you to unmute. See if you can get that. Carter, would you like to be next? Julie, we'll come back to you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Carter Varn, and my company is Advanced Caliber.
Awesome. Oh, Julie, looks like you're back.
Yes. Julie Hauser, FD North America.
Awesome. Jill.
Jill Cates, Easter Seals Career Connection.
Vicki.
Vicki Garnett, Hamilton Welcome Center.
Anne.
Hi, I'm Ann Arnett, and I'm with Gateway Springs Health Campus.
Anne's always on the go in her car. And David Hauser, would you like to be next?
He's coming.
Hi, David Hauser, FD North America.
Tiffany? Then I'll let you take it.
Tiffany. Yeah, I'm Tiffany Grove with the Greater Hamilton Chamber.
All right. So you know who all of us are. We're excited to hear from Ryan today. So Ryan, the floor is yours.
Okay, excellent. Well, thanks for having me. And as everyone can probably imagine, the current situation, the current COVID times have really affected the restaurant industry quite drastically and still is. And one of the big focuses right now is online ordering, curbside pickup, delivery. And we just wanted to have a conversation really about that and how it affects the restaurants, but also how it affects you as a consumer who are, who are shopping and eating at those restaurants. So I don't know, Dan, if you want me to go right into questions or how did you want to format this?
Well, that's up to you, but I thought maybe you would give us some golden nuggets first, and then that'll spur some questions.
Sure, okay. So again, you kind of heard my background. I'm pretty hyper-focused on servicing restaurants and helping them get the right systems for their business. And as I mentioned, right now, online ordering is huge. And there are some things coming down the pike, I think, that are going to transition the way that we all experience a restaurant as it relates to contactless ordering, contactless payments, and so forth. As we talk about online ordering, I think everyone's probably familiar with things like DoorDash, Uber Eats, Grubhub, those third-party online ordering delivery services, and really trying to have a conversation around how do those affect a restaurant? How do those affect you? And what's the difference in having something like that and having, let's say, the restaurant has their own online ordering solution, okay? So for example, for an online ordering system like DoorDash, you may or may not know those companies can charge upwards of 30% commission fees for every order, anywhere from 15 to 30%. So that's a huge chunk of the revenue for the restaurant when the restaurants are already operating on very, very thin margins as it is. So how does that affect you though as a consumer? You may or may not have noticed this. I know I have noticed this. Is what restaurants will do is their menu prices on DoorDash and Grubhub and so forth will be inflated. They'll be higher than what they are in the restaurant, right? They're doing that to sort of offset some of those fees. And I know I personally have gone to place an order online for a restaurant here local to me, and my check was going to be almost double what it would have been, or actually what it was, because I ended up ordering directly from the restaurant and going to pick it up myself. So that's kind of one of the things that's affecting the restaurant space with these third-party online ordering companies. And there's another piece of that that has to do with integration into their system and efficiency and accuracy as well. Typically, a restaurant that's using sometimes multiple services, sometimes 2 or 3 or 4 of these services, and you may see that they have 2 or 3 or 4 tablets sitting on the counter, and they're dinging with orders coming in, which is great. It's bringing in revenue, right? And that's how they see it, and that's how it's pitched to them. But what happens is those orders, unless they're taking them and manually entering them into their point of sale system, they're not going into the point of sale system. They're taking them, putting them in the kitchen, processing the orders. But at the end of the day, when they want to run a sales report for the day, their POS system is only showing what was rang through it. They're going to have to run a separate report for each one of these other services to get all their sales together. So you can start to see inefficiencies there, labor discrepancies. Even if I have to take that order and re-enter it as a server, I've got room for error. I've got room for mistakes, and it's also taking me away from servicing people who may be in the restaurant, right? So it's a labor issue. And aside from that, it's about the experience. If you don't own the experience, you can't control that, right? What's the menu experience like on DoorDash compared to what it would be through your own system? And once you hand that food off to the dasher, right, you don't necessarily know what that interaction is going to be like when it gets to the customer. So those are some of the big things there that we're helping restaurants with as it relates to the third-party ordering, the fees, and also just not being able to control that local experience with their customer. Any questions on any of that as it relates to that? Okay. Another thing I mentioned with integration. Now, don't get me wrong. With third-party delivery services, there are ways to integrate those services, right? So there's a third-party software company that works with the companies that we work with so that my DoorDash order can come straight into the POS system, print straight to the kitchen. It's all captured in the sales reporting, so that is there, but I see that a lot of people aren't necessarily using that. So that's something to think about. Okay, let's talk about what's important. How many of you have ordered placed an online order for food recently or do it regularly, right? Pretty much everyone. And has your experience has been good, bad, so-so? Thumbs down?
Good.
I think it's a mix based upon the restaurant and the way the apps were built. Some are really, really good, especially if you have picky eaters that don't want this ingredient, don't want that. So it's been kind of a mix of both.
100%. Yeah, that's pretty much what I see. I tend to see probably more that aren't as good than those that are. But yeah, it's 100% about how easy it is for that customer, not only to place their order, and it's easy to navigate and pay for it, and they can understand what they're doing. But yeah, what you said, Carter, being able to customize your food, right? Take this off of it or add this to it, like you would if you were in the restaurant, right? You may go to that restaurant regularly and you know how you want to order, and they take that order every single time. When you go online to place the order, you just can't seem to figure out how to do it because either they just haven't built the system properly, programmed the menu properly for the end user consumer. I personally ran into this with, of all people, Chipotle. That's a big company, right? They've got a really great website, a really great app, really easy to use, really a lot of good things about it. But there was one particular problem that we couldn't ever use it because my wife only wanted a cheese quesadilla. And you couldn't order a cheese quesadilla on the website. And also she wants a bowl with no meat. And you could not pick no meat as an option. You had to pick a protein, right? So I actually contacted Chipotle and was like, we got to fix this. How can we do this? And we figured out a way around it. And you ordered a veggie bowl and then you put no guac, and they knew not to put meat on it. So, but like you wouldn't know that, right? It seems to me like as a restaurant guy, they could have just put no meat as a button. So that's a big part about online ordering and making it user friendly for the customer, right? And I see restaurants that struggle with this all the time because they had somebody build it for them who maybe doesn't necessarily understand their menu and how it works and what the options are, or it was thrown up very, very quickly. But really, it starts in the restaurant, right? If we build the menu in the restaurant so that it's easy for a server to enter without mistakes, right? It takes them right through the process. Then typically that'll translate over to the online ordering system, right? So you go on there, you place your order, you pick what you want, you can take off what you want, and you can submit that order. That's all part of the user experience. But from the restaurant perspective, if you haven't set it up properly, you could be losing money, right? Because you could have incorrect orders coming in with mistakes on them, and you end up having to throw that food away. I know just last week I had a customer reach out and they had added some things to their menu on their own and thought they had it all set up correctly. And it works in-house when they have servers who are making decisions and know better as opposed to what to hit. But they had all their entrees set up so that you could pick as many sides as you wanted and it didn't add any cost, right? So a customer, I think, ordered like an entree with like 4 sides and it didn't upcharge. Of course, they made it, you know, they had to eat that, but you know, it was just a confusing thing for them and they lost some money on it, and you know, the customer got a great deal in that particular case. All right, let's see, what else do we have to talk about? I know it's so exciting to talk about restaurants and online ordering. Let me ask you this question. How many of you are using contactless payments, not just in the restaurants, but just in general, like Google Pay, Apple Pay? So a few of you, not as many as I would have thought, especially with, you know, COVID and everything. It seems to be more and more popular. Do you anticipate that you will be adopting that and using that in the future? Maybe you just haven't figured it out yet or just haven't had a need for it. Some people say yes, some people say no. Okay. Why? Might I ask why?
My feedback is security.
Security?
Yeah, just wondering if I'm going to get hacked.
I believe Carter's our resident IT specialist here on the call, even though I have an IT background, but I have read and heard that it's actually more secure to use the contactless payment than it is to swipe your card or even dip your chip.
Yeah, and especially, I mean, there were all the scams, especially at the swipes at the more of the gas stations and that, where they would have the chip readers that were, you know, reading your barcode as it was also going in. So that was a bigger issue there. I've used it because I got both the Apple Watch, and I really use it off of that more than I use it even off the phone, except some of the apps like you're talking about with the food is nice because they will give you that Apple Pay option as an example, just to pay. So then you are one less time entering your credit card information. Yeah, for sure. The gas pump's a great point. I mean, especially right now when I go get gas, like I'm using like a paper towel to hold the pump, and you know, if the pumps do have the tap to pay, I absolutely use it because of what you said there. I mean, I'm checking to make sure the swiper's not loose or somebody hasn't put a skimmer on there, you know.
But when you tap your phone, it's encrypted and it's actually more secure in a lot of ways than just swiping your card. But the reason I ask that obviously is that's become a very popular thing in the restaurant space. You know, even if you're doing carry out and it's sort of contactless pickup, you're walking in and they're now putting the payment terminals customer facing so that you can put your own card in and you can sign and tip right on the terminal, or you can touch with Google Pay or Apple Pay to pay. But one of the things I had as a question was, you know, what do I see as the future trend for restaurants as it relates to contactless ordering and contactless payment? So we talked a little bit about online ordering and making it easy. But what I see coming down the pike, and it's actually happening, it's rolling out with some of the packages that I work with now, is what they call mobile ordering and mobile payment. And they've got a couple different names for it, but I'm guessing any of you that have been eating out recently have probably seen the QR codes on the table where you can scan it and get what they call a touchless menu, which is, I thought, a very clever, great way to do a touchless, you know, a touchless menu concept. But to take that a step further, what I see coming is it's actually already here, is kind of the next level of that, right? So you walk into a dine-in environment, you walk into the restaurant, you sit down at a table, you scan that code, but now that code's not just giving you a touchless menu, it's actually attaching a table number to the order. And you can browse the menu, you can enter your order and submit it, and it goes to the kitchen, and they make it and bring it to your table, and you don't even have to interact with the server, okay? And it also has your payment already attached, so it's similar to placing an online order. You're paying for that order as you submit it, right? And kind of phase 2 of that is geo-fencing the restaurant, right? So, because the first question comes to mind is, well, what's going to keep someone from walking out on their check, right? Well, of course, if you're using that app, you're registered as a user and you put your credit card in there. And if you get up and walk out of the restaurant and let's say you forgot to pay, once you get 10, 15 feet outside of the restaurant, the geofence kicks in and it realizes that you've left the restaurant and it pays your check automatically, right? So those are the kind of technologies that are coming. And some of the things that come up from that right away is, well, you're taking away the server's job, right? Which is a natural response, I think, in the beginning. But for me, I don't see it that way. And I talked to restaurant owners about this as well. The server, really a lot of the mundane work of a server is taking the order and writing it down and running to the station and entering it in, you know, and then running to the next table, and they're kind of doing all of this, you know, task-oriented work. Whereas if I take that piece of it out of the equation and I can browse the menu myself as a customer, place my order, send it in, now my server is freed up, okay, to engage me more as a customer, to talk to me, to ask questions, see how I'm doing, provide exceptional customer service, exceptional experience. Not only that, but now that same server can potentially service 10 tables instead of 5 tables, right? Which equates to obviously potentially higher tips and so forth. And if he or she's providing exceptional service because they've been freed up from some of that mundane, you know, task-oriented work, they're able to provide that great service, which would ensure a much better tip, right? So is that something that anybody sounds like that would be cool or they're comfortable with or not? What do you think?
I have a question, Ryan.
Yeah.
So what, you know, the convenience of technology, as you know, continues to evolve. But then what information then is the restaurant gathering from the client, the patron that's in the restaurant? Because obviously it opens the door for them to, I'm sure they're going to be capturing how often you come and what food you eat and what your preferences are and all that type of thing. So what all kind of information can they gather when you know, do a totally automated technology transaction?
Well, 100% of really everything you said, right? Whether you're using that that fancy little order and pay at table thing I was telling you about, or just a full-blown POS system, as long as it's set up properly and being used properly, then absolutely they can manage their business, right? If they're tracking the customer information, yes, I can track, what's Dan's preference? What's his favorite food? What's he order every time he comes in? How frequently does he come in? What's his average check size, right? And all of those analytics now give me information as a restaurant owner to make decisions on, right? What items are popular, what items are not, what do we need to 86 and what do we need to keep, right? What also gives me analytics and data for marketing purposes. So, if I know that Dan loves this particular entree and we're going to do a special on it, I need to let Dan know that we're going to do a special on it, right? So those kind of analytics really help the restaurant measure what they're doing, because waste is a bad thing in the restaurant, right? So if we've got menu items that aren't moving, food that's not selling, then we need to figure out a way to either repurpose it, make a new recipe, change the dish so that we can move that. And if something is just not selling at all, we want to take it off the menu and pivot and make changes for sure. Does that kind of answer?
Yeah, I think it's going to go beyond that, but that's just kind of the world in which we live. So,
well, we could get into a lot of, it definitely is going to go beyond that, right? I mean, you think about your phone, it knows where you are if you have your location services turned on, right? So I go, and I'm not worried about that. I have mine turned on because I'm always giving reviews and so forth when I go out to places. But it's funny, like I'll go out to dinner. My wife and I went out this past weekend, and then the next day I got a Google Maps pop up and said, "Hey, how was so-and-so? What did you think about it?" Right? And that's reminding me, oh, let me write a review. Let me upload some pictures. I try to take pictures when I go into places and take pictures of food and stuff like that. So yeah, it's the big brother sort of, big data analytics are endless, as far as the type of card you're using, what you're spending, how frequently you're coming in, where you live, then we link all that back to your Facebook page and we know everything about you, right? We can pretty much understand exactly what all your affinities are. And a lot of that is obviously used for marketing purposes. Most of the restaurants that I work with haven't got that super sophisticated in their marketing efforts, right? If they have an email or a texting list where they're blasting out specials or they're putting something on their Facebook page, that's, for the most part, that's about the extent of it. But yeah, you're right. I mean, there's a lot of information being tracked as it relates to that.
So how can other businesses that are non-food service, how can they adopt some of these technology trends? Is there a way for service businesses that, are not restaurants to adopt the same type of technology?
I think so. I think every niche has its technology that's focused in that niche. But if we think about what's happening in the space, in the service space as it is, with contactless everything, mobile apps, those kind of things are going to change the way we do stuff, right? So if I'm going to set an appointment to go take my car in, right, I'm going to do all of that through an app, and I'm going to pull up and drop off my car, and I may not even have to interact with anyone. If I do, we're going to all be social distance and so forth. I mean, from a retail or any service business, you've got different metrics that you want to track within that business. So there's software that's specific to each one of those niches. But I think the contactless payment, just the social distancing, kind of rethinking how everybody operates is starting to affect a lot of different service businesses. I don't know if that really gets to where you were going with that, but it's
well, it comes back to something else. When we talk about customer service, which unfortunately has in many cases become a thing of the past, customer service is when somebody's not rude to you now.
Mm-hmm.
So, if we are going to go down this technology path, which, it's where we're headed and in many ways support it, are any of the restaurants looking at, because if that server is now serving 20 tables, where, she's not taking the order. So normally she'd do 10, now she's doing 20. Okay. She's only going to potentially deliver their food and check up on them. Okay. Are the restaurants looking at their level of service can't be what it has been. It has to be way beyond. So that server now has limited contact with the patrons. And even though her message is going to be different because she is not going to be taking the order, but she's coming back to check on people and that type of thing. Are any of the restaurants really looking at the customer service has to be elevated, quite a bit in order for this to work? Or, the thing that people are going to get is a totally automated experience and probably very bad reviews?
Yeah, 100% there. I think the good quality restaurants that are well run, restaurateurs that are running them, they get that and they see that. Now, is it human nature, depending on the restaurant that you're in, for that server, like you said, to just get super busy and now just become a robot, if you will, running food and going table to table and not engaging the customer and not providing the service? Absolutely, that's going to happen as well. And that's where the leadership of the restaurant has to step in and realize now more than ever, customer service is paramount, right? And I think it'll run the gamut. Like you said, there are going to be some that, okay, let's just face it. If I have a server who can now do 20 tables instead of 10 tables, I don't need as many servers to run my restaurant, right? So that means people are going to potentially lose their job, right? But it doesn't have to always be the case, right? There could be repurposing of those people within the restaurant, within the business, if you will. So maybe I don't need as many servers now, so that frees up 2 or 3 people to be more of a customer service concierge, right? So we're changing the whole dynamic of the experience, because the ones that offer the experience are going to be the ones that survive, right? Like you said, the ones that aren't offering experience, it becomes a robotic type of an environment that's all automated and it's all tech. That's not why you go out to eat for the most part, right? You go out to eat to have someone serve you, to have someone, wait on you and bring your food. And let's face it, right? Your experience at a restaurant a lot of times is predicated on the service you get from your server. I mean, the food is going to be great. That's awesome, right? Hopefully you're going to places where the food's always great anyway. But your memory of that restaurant is going to be based off of how that particular person interacted with you and your family, right? And not just the server. When you walk in the front door and the hostess, right? Or, the manager coming over and having a conversation with you. So I think you're 100% on track there. And I've seen it with some of the guys that I work with. They see that value. They have very impeccable training schedules and training protocols. A lot of people never adapted the whole order at table. That was a big trend for a while. Oh, I have a tablet. I'm going to walk up to the table and take your order, and send it to the kitchen. Now, me as a tech person, I love that because it's efficient, right? Once again, if I can take your order right at the table and hit fire and send it to the kitchen instead of running back over to another station and entering it, now I'm saving time. I can go to the next table and the next table and the next table, right? So I see the efficiency, the table turns, and I can equate that to dollars for the restaurant owner. But some of those restaurant owners are seeing that as like, I don't want a server doing this and not engaging the customer, right? Whereas, some servers, you go in and they can take your whole order, memorize it. They don't even write anything down, right? That's unique. So the ones that get it, I think, are embracing that, and they're pivoting and looking at ways, not only how can they provide that traditional customer service that you're, talking about is kind of gone by the wayside, but how can they do things even bigger and better than what they were doing before? There's lots of little tricks of the trade when it comes to customer service, using different colored napkins to identify if that's a new customer or not. So then everybody in the restaurant knows that's a new customer. We need to make sure we give them exceptional care, or give them a tour or whatever it may be. So I think it's not going to be across the board. Like I said, I think the restaurants that get it, smart restaurateurs, smart business owners, whether it's retail or service industries, they're going to pivot and enhance the customer service everywhere that they can to differentiate themselves. And there will be the ones that don't, there will be the ones that, like, oh, I can operate now with 2 servers instead of 7. So I'm going to cut my staff to nothing and everyone's just going to be running around taking orders and I don't really care about the customer service. Unfortunately, you're going to see that as well.
So I have another question. So if we are, if something becomes where, you can, scan a QR code or whatever at the table and the menu comes up and all of that, if it makes the server's job different, I would think it also makes the concierge's job very different, because if you're walking into a restaurant for the first time, who's going to be doing the education of what this experience should be like? Because if somebody isn't explaining to the customer, have you been here before? This is how you can do this, okay? Somebody's going to walk in and be waiting for that server to show up, and nothing happens, So, our restaurant's looking at that initial educational piece becomes really important, because they're no longer just taking you to the table. They're now taking you to the table and explaining to you how this experience is going to work best for you.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I actually have seen that shift happening already. Exactly what you're talking about, for exactly the reason you're talking about. If you walk in and they take you to the table and you sit down and there's nothing on the table. I mean, there's no silverware even on the table, and there's a sticker there, and it says, scan here for our touchless. And some of them it doesn't even say that; it's just a barcode.
Right.
And I'm a tech guy, so that first thing I'm doing is like, oh, let's scan it. My family were all like, let's scan it. And I do it everywhere I go because I want to see how different people implement it. But yeah, 100%. That's where the concierge, that concierge/host, is really taking on a new role now, because welcome to our restaurant, and they are going to take you to your table, but they're going to be telling you about this new experience, because like you said, maybe a server isn't coming right over. They're changing that whole dynamic up. Someone else could be bringing drinks. There could be multiple people servicing that table now. They could be doing team tips, so it's not so individualized, and making it more of a team effort. But yeah, absolutely. I've seen it multiple times where that hostess, that concierge, is now sort of educating me on what to expect, right? Here's how you use this QR code that's on the table. One of the things I was telling a lot of restaurant owners is, if you're going to do the QR code for the touchless menu, you have to at least tell the customers that they don't need a special app to scan a QR code, because a lot of people still think that you need like a certain QR scanner app to do it, and really all you have to do is point your camera at it, right? So, little details like that, I see them put it on the signage, but let's face it, not everybody always reads it. So that's where that concierge is explaining, here's what you do. Someone will be coming to take your drink order. We have a touchless menu option here. You can scan this and access our touchless menu. But if you want a paper menu or a traditional menu, we also offer that, and you have to let them know that as well. You're never going to get 100% adoption on anything. So you have to, one of my former employers used to always say, you have to manage the old while you create the new. And you have to accommodate those people. There's going to be people, depending on the demographics of your restaurant, that don't have a smartphone, right? Or don't care to have a smartphone, or aren't comfortable using a smartphone to make a payment or to look at a menu, or they can't see it properly, what have you. So you have to kind of juggle both. But yeah, that's a great point, because, and to my point before, repurposing some of those staff members to do different roles within the restaurant is also what I'm seeing happen to help accommodate some of that.
So I have another question. I'm asking.
Yeah, that's good.
Tiffany, if somebody else is on Facebook Live wants to ask a question, just let us know.
I have a comment after you.
Okay.
Okay.
One of the challenges I see with some of these new systems is, once you've gone down that path, you can't get out of it. So the reason I'm saying that is, if I go out to dinner, especially if I'm going to a restaurant for the first time, the ordering and all that is great, unless I decide that now I need help. So, I'm one of those patrons that says, okay, I've narrowed it down to 2 choices. Which would you recommend? Okay. So if I'm ordering, through, a QR code or whatever, can I get out of it? Is there a call for help, or is there, because I usually
That's a great
get
point.
excellent recommendations if I say, should I get this or should I get that? And if you have a good waitress, they'll say, well, if you like XYZ, you'll probably love this. Or this is one of our most popular dishes. Or I'll be honest, I've had them say, I'll be honest, I've never tried it, but I've tried this one. I find that very helpful, especially when you're trying a menu for the first time.
Yes. I do the same thing. It drives my wife crazy. She's like, why can't you just pick something? I'm always asking the servers, what do you recommend? What do you like? Like you said, I'll narrow it down to two things. Well, what about this or what about that? And I know their taste is different than mine, but they typically are going to know what's popular and what people like and so forth. So that's a great point. And I probably didn't really do a good job explaining it as I should have. I don't think it's 100% to the point. I think you have to have a hybrid solution, right? I think to your point, maybe I'm doing a touchless menu and I'm looking through my phone, but there definitely still needs to be interaction from that server, right? So some places may opt to have no servers and they're doing everything digitally. And if you've got a simplified menu or something like that, if it fits, that's where every situation, every restaurant is completely different in how they operate and the vision that restaurateur wants to have and experience. But I think the ones that are going to be successful are going to have a hybrid of that, right? So Dan, you're sitting there, you're scrolling through the virtual menu, if you will. Absolutely, somebody's coming to the table, first of all, to bring you water, bring you silverware, take your drink order, and did you have any questions? Is there anything I can help with? So I think sort of that hybrid solution of having that server interacting with the guest and really interacting with the guest at a different level than just taking your order, being able to talk to you about, well, most people order this, but I really like this, and this is our top seller. I think, to your point, I think a hybrid solution is really the ones that are going to succeed very well at it. I don't think you're going to go all the way one way or the other. That's just my opinion, though, but I think it's a great point. And I love your idea, because this is how things happen and how things get better. When we first started doing online ordering, we were like, oh yeah, we got online ordering, curbside pickup, super simple, right? But a few weeks in, what happened was we realized it could be better, especially if you're doing curbside pickup, right? You want somewhere in the online ordering process for them to put in what kind of car they're driving, what their license plate number is, right? So when you come out the door, where's this food going? Or for them to be able to text when they pull up to the restaurant so that someone in the restaurant knows that they're outside ready to pick up. And all of those things are being added and enhanced to make that experience better. And your idea, if I'm doing this virtual menu app, it's almost like, you hit the button on an airplane when you need the attendant, right? Like, hey, I need help. And you hit a button on the app and that notifies someone to come to your table immediately. So I wrote that down because I'm going to submit that to the development team. I think that's a great feature to add to that, to your point.
I have a question.
Yeah.
This is geared towards the restaurant owners.
Mm-hmm.
Since they are forced to find new ways of doing business and adopting new software, how welcoming are they into purchasing and tweaking what they already have? Are they hesitant to invest more, or are they welcoming to it?
That's a great question, and it kind of is across the board. The forward-thinking ones are open to investing in new technology if they need the feature and they see that as a business model for them going forward, right? A lot of restaurants that had what I would call a legacy system that, doesn't have the cloud, doesn't have online ordering integrated, doesn't have some of the newest features that they want, they're absolutely open to it. But yeah, there are definitely some that are like, hey, I'm just trying to keep my doors open right now. I don't have the money or the time to invest in a new system. So it really varies with each restaurant. But to give you an idea of what I'm seeing and how restaurants are pivoting, I had have you all heard of ghost kitchens, right? The concept of a ghost kitchen is basically just a kitchen that's doing all carry out and delivery. So a lot of the restaurant owners I work with, they're certainly pivoting their business model. Many of them did not do online ordering prior to COVID. They did not want to, they did not need to. They felt it would affect their kitchen and the experience of their dine-in patrons, okay? Now they're all doing it because they cannot survive at 50% capacity without doing it. So I have one restaurant that's a breakfast and brunch restaurant. So they're open 7 a.m. to 2:30, okay? And they reached out a few weeks ago and the marketing director said, hey, I have this idea. I'm going into a meeting. What do you think? How could we do this? And what they wanted to do is where they're located, they're not permitted to do dine-in for dinner because there's another restaurant in the same strip and it's in their lease agreement. So it's a non-compete. However, they are allowed to do dinner for carryout, right? So they're like, we have this kitchen sitting here from 2:30 till 7 a.m. the next morning. How can we spin up a ghost kitchen, if you will, for the evening dinner carryout only? And we essentially set it up as a separate, completely separate database, completely separate entity, and we put one POS station in the restaurant because we needed something to anchor the orders to. But by doing just that one station in the restaurant, it allowed me to use all the existing kitchen printers because I'm on the same network, existing receipt printers, right? So I pitched that idea to them because originally we were going to just try to make a special menu that was only available at certain times of the day. But that doesn't work if I'm placing a dinner carryout on Tuesday for pickup on Thursday, right? If I can't get to that menu at all times of the day, it doesn't work. So we did that and it worked out great, so it's just, every situation is different and trying to think through that. A lot of restaurant owners have completely changed their hours, right? They've said, hey, I've realized that 80% of our business is from 11 to 7 or, 11 to 9. So, or even dinner. Like some of them aren't even opening till 4 o'clock now, where they used to be open at 9 o'clock in the morning, and they don't need as much staff. And it's a lot less expensive from overhead standpoint, right? Now, did they let all those staff members go? No, they repositioned them in different locations, and and they let some of probably the ones that needed to be let go were let go, and then they filled in with their all-star team, if you will. But yeah, there's some that are reluctant, but the past few weeks, my phone has definitely increased ringing and activity is picking up. So I think as more and more people are hopefully seeing that maybe there's an end in sight, they're pivoting, they're back under construction on new locations and things of that nature.
Good.
Ryan, I have a comment and a question.
Uh-huh.
I want to go back to something that you said a while ago, which was that you try to take pictures of the food that you're about to eat and do reviews. I'm trying to be really intentional about that, whether it's a restaurant or a retail shop. But what can customers do to help restaurants survive and thrive in the new normal?
Yeah, well, for one, right? Go out to eat if you're comfortable with it. Go out to eat, right? Or do online ordering, do carry out, right? If at all possible, do the carry out. If they offer DoorDash and they offer online ordering through the restaurant, even if it's a phone call, my bet is most of them would rather you order directly from them as opposed to through DoorDash, right? Because they're not going to pay those fees. So support them in that regard. Like Tiffany said, reviews are huge, right? Google My Business reviews, Facebook reviews, whatever that restaurant is using, those are huge. So that's one of the best things you can do is, if you enjoyed your experience, write a review for them, write a positive review, okay? But also, if you didn't enjoy your experience, if there was something that just wasn't quite right, you don't have to like blast them with like this horrific negative review, right? But don't be afraid to tell a manager or somebody at the restaurant that is obviously not just the server, because a lot of times they don't know what they don't know. And if they're trying to improve and make their business better, they can't if they're not getting the feedback. And you know, if it's negative feedback, sometimes they need to hear that because they can't coach against it. They can't correct it if they don't know. So, you know, I would say certainly go out, eat, write reviews, but also offer suggestions, you know, just like Dan's idea, you know, for the app. Those things are invaluable. They may not have thought of that. Like I'm the same way. Like so many times I'll be like, oh, well, I would do it this way, but I'm sure they've thought of that before. I mean, they had to have thought of that before, right? But maybe they haven't. And sometimes the best thing I can do for them is just give them a simple idea and it changes their business. I mean, the touchless menu was an idea that I shared with some of my customers right out of the gate. I'm like, you already have a menu on your website that's mobile responsive, right? Now, if it's a PDF menu, it doesn't work as well because you're trying to zoom in and you can't see it. And I said, why don't you do a QR code that links right to that menu? It's that easy. I mean, it costs you nothing. And they were like, oh, that's a great idea, right? And now everybody's doing it. So the simplest little idea you might think is nothing, to them, it could change their business. It could change the experience for all the other customers. So positive reviews are great, but also feedback, constructive criticism, if you will. Like you don't have to like be completely blast them online because that could hurt them way more, you know, by doing that. But if you're not happy with something, don't take it. Like talk to the manager, talk to the owners before you leave the restaurant. Say, hey, listen, or send them an email. You don't necessarily have to go out and rip them on social media, but they definitely would appreciate that feedback for sure. Let me see. I think I had some other things. Yeah, no, that was good. Do you have another one, Tiffany?
No, but I will comment. I love the QR code and the touchless menu.
I like it, but I see it implemented well and I see it not implemented well, you know. So it's just like anything else. Let's see what else I had a few. No, I think that was most of the questions.
I just have two comments, Ryan. We've been
Yeah.
doing a lot of carry out at my house, and one restaurant we go to, they have it down to a science. It's excellent. I think we've probably repurposed a lot of the servers because they're running out curbside. Sometimes there's a little bit of a wait, but I mean, every time we order, our food is delicious and things are still great. We had another establishment we went to, and my daughter did curbside ordering because she wasn't able to go in, and they don't have curbside ordering, they say. She calls, you know, I'm here. We don't have curbside ordering. She's like, well, it's right on your app, and it had me put my car make and model, license plate, whatever. So at that time, she was not able to go into the establishment and had to come home, and then I had to go run back and pick up her order. And they're like, well, we don't have curbside ordering. I'm like, it's on your app, so you probably need to figure out if you have curbside ordering or not.
Yeah. Yeah, that's poor leadership, you know, poor communication amongst the team internally. You have that in restaurants and businesses alike. Your team needs to know what's going on for sure. You know, the other thing with, as it relates to that feedback, you know, there is definitely some foods that do not travel well, right? And, you know, if you're ordering something from one of your restaurants and it's not the same, you should let them know that, right? Because maybe they haven't thought of that. Again, you think, oh, they're a restaurant owner, they should get that, right? But I watch like Restaurant Impossible all the time. I'm always watching all these like restaurant shows. And, you know, that's something that they don't think about, especially if they've never done delivery or carry out as a business model. If they've always been a dine-in restaurant, they just think, well, I just throw this dish in this tray and it's all good to go. But what you do is you take that, plate it, package it up, sit it on the counter, let it sit for 15 or 20 minutes, and then go open it up and see what it looks like, see how it tastes. That's kind of the test. And then if it's not what you want your customer to get, then maybe that is not something you offer for carry out or delivery, and you kind of have a unique menu just for that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the first restaurant, like, you can order extra dressing with your salad, but you can never order extra butter for your baked potato. And I'm like, I would like extra butter with my baked potato. I don't need extra dressing, please.
Yeah.
So I end up calling and placing my order directly with them and still do the carry out. But yeah, I'll message them and be like, hey, have you guys thought about adding some options so that customers can get extra butter if they would like
Yeah,
that?
100%, because they want to know it. Just like I called Chipotle about it. Now we can use the online order because we know how to do it. And I mean, I sent it all the way to Chipotle corporate. I don't know if they've changed the app per se yet, but they may not think about that. They may not know that. They're not on the front lines. They're not the consumer, and they would appreciate that feedback.
Right. Well, I think it's all those things that your hostess can do when you're at a restaurant. She can take off the meat or add something extra. But, when you're just taking the menu from here to there and creating an online system, it's not necessarily the same.
Yeah, that's for sure. Because not all online systems are created equal. They may not even have the ability to do the various modifiers and additions and upcharges and so forth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely something they're going to have to look at and continue in the future, because this whole situation has probably changed the world of restaurants forever.
Forever, yeah. I mean, there's many, many, many that will not reopen, and God forbid we have any sort of shutdown again. There will be many more that don't reopen. But I think it has changed it. I think the online ordering, carry out, all of that stuff will continue to evolve, and it'll be mainstream now. I mean, it's been forced into mainstream, and now it's just a matter of making it better and making the experience better for everyone.
So we just have a few more minutes. Does anybody have any last minute questions? Or Ryan, do you have any last minute wrap up comments?
No, I mean, I think we really, like I said, just support your local restaurants, go out, eat, do online ordering, curbside pickup, give feedback, write reviews. I don't know how many of you are like Google local guides. I'm a Google local guide. I mean, you get points for it, but it's really kind of cool to take pictures of places and post a review, and then you get like an update that says, wow, your review helped 5,000 people, right? And it's kind of like a weird thing, but that's huge right now. So support them, write reviews, like their pages, give feedback, and that's really about the extent of it. That's all we can do is support our local small businesses.
Great. I think that's a perfect way to end. Thank you so much, Ryan.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Your expertise and information. That was great. Next week, we have ProSource that will be with us on Coffee and Conversation. So you can register for that at hamilton-ohio.com. That'll be Tuesday at 9 a.m. So thank you, everyone, for joining, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
Excellent. Thank you. Take care.
Thanks.